I, 16-year-old male, make my own lunch for school. I started making them when I was 11 and my mom was sick with cancer, and now I make all my lunches. My dad refuses to give me lunch money for school, said no way in hell to making them. Mom made his and now he pays for lunch every day and doesn't want to give me permission to eat outside school, which is an option with parents' consent because he'd need to pay for that. So I make them. I work part-time, and so I started paying for the ingredients I use in my lunches. My dad got married 2-ish years ago. His wife has 3 kids who are 5, 7, and 8 years old now. For about a year, there's been this issue where my dad and his wife want me to make all 4 lunches. They said if I'm making my own, I should make my siblings. And I say siblings because they're not my siblings. Lunches too, to save their mom time and to streamline everything. I was like, no, and my dad's wife was shocked. She called me out for making stuff only for myself. She said it's crazy that I would look at my siblings and not want to make a few things for them too. It escalated to where they said I shouldn't get to eat their dinners if I won't participate in taking care of the family. So I buy my own dinner stuff now and make my own. Now they're calling me out for doing that. They said I could make dinner for all 4 of us and then we could eat dinner earlier and my dad and his wife could do something else. My dad's wife didn't make lunches for her kids on several occasions to try and make me relent. Their teachers ended up feeding them and writing to her about it. She was super pissed and asked me if I was ashamed. I told her they're her kids and her problem, not mine. I also suggested she take it up with my dad if she's unhappy and wants help feeding her kids because it's not my job. She said if dad won't feed me, he won't feed her kids. I shrugged her off. Monday was a big day in all of this. I was home for hours alone and made a nice dinner. I was eating when my dad's wife came home with her kids, who were hungry, and she exploded on me and asked if I'd made the kids dinner. I said no. She demanded to make it up to them. I make them lunch for Tuesday, yesterday, and I said no. She called me a bunch of names and told me she freaking hates me because I'm supposed to be a decent kid, and yet I won't help feed her kids and it's not how you treat family. I told her because it's not my job and we're not a family. I pointed out she married a guy who isn't a good dad to his own kid, and how her only interactions with said kid were attempting to dump responsibility onto him, me, so she really has no reason to think I owe her anything, which of course led her to calling me all kinds of things, including an butt. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Document everything and tell her if she refuses to feed her kids again, you're calling CPS. I think you're the reason she married your dad. She was well aware your dad was nothing more than half of your DNA. She saw you and how independent you are and said, oh boy, free babysitter. And he cooks too. I can dump my kids on him and finally have a life. But then obviously you refuse to play her game and that pisses her off. I don't see that relationship lasting after she loses the kids and the deadbeat she married refuses to help. Comment 2, not the idiot. You need to sit down with your school counselor to explain the whole refusal to provide you lunch money and wanting to refuse you dinner thing. Your dad has a legal obligation to provide you food. The counselor will keep an eye on you, and if they decide to call CPS to look into your house, all of you kids will be better for it. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been a tense month since then, and I've got quite the update for you. So after that big blowout with my dad's wife, things got even more tense around the house. She started giving me the silent treatment, and my dad just kept trying to guilt trip me into making lunches for her kids. It was like they were tag teaming me, but I held my ground. About a week later, my dad sat me down for a serious talk. He started going on about how I needed to step up and be a better role model for my siblings. He even brought up some old story about how when he was a kid, he always looked out for his little brother, even though they had different moms. I guess he thought that would somehow convince me to start playing happy family with his new wife's kids. But here's the thing. My dad never once mentioned how he basically abandoned me when my mom got sick. It's like he conveniently forgot about all those years when I had to fend for myself while he was off living his life. And now he expects me to just forget all that and play big brother to these kids I barely know? Not gonna happen. Anyway, a few days after that lovely chat with my dad, I overheard his wife on the phone with her sister. She was going on about how ungrateful and selfish I was and how she couldn't believe my dad let me get away with this kind of behavior. I guess she thought I couldn't hear her, but I caught every word. That's when I realized that this whole situation wasn't really about the lunches at all. It was about my dad's wife trying to force me into this perfect little blended family fantasy she had in her head. She wanted me to just forget about my mom and accept her as my new maternal figure, but that's not how it works. I started thinking back to when my mom first got sick and how my dad pretty much checked out emotionally. He was never there for me when I needed him most, and now he expects me to just play along with this new family dynamic like nothing ever happened. It's messed up. So I made a decision. I told my dad that I was done trying to fit into his new life. I said that I would keep making my own lunches and dinners, and that I wasn't going to be guilted into taking care of his wife's kids. I also told him that if he couldn't accept that, then maybe I needed to start looking into other living arrangements. My dad was shocked, to say the least. He started backpedaling, saying that he never meant to make me feel like I wasn't part of the family. But the damage was done. I could see that his loyalties were with his new wife and her kids, not with me. In the end, I decided to start saving up money from my part-time job so I can move out as soon as I turn 18. I know it won't be easy, but I'd rather struggle on my own than keep living in a house where I'm constantly made to feel like an outsider. Looking back, I realized that my dad's behavior when my mom was sick was a big red flag. He couldn't handle the responsibility of being there for his own kid, so why would I expect him to have my back now? It's a harsh reality, but it's one I've had to face. Anyway, that's where things stand now. I'm focusing on school and work and just trying to keep my head down until I can get out of this house for good. Thanks for listening and for all the support and advice. It means a lot. Am I the idiot for not offering more than $10,000 for my stepdaughter's wedding after being called a gold digger? I have been married to my husband Rob for 4 years now. My husband's late wife died 1 year before we met, and we dated for 2 years before marriage. He has 2 kids named Madison and Brett. I am not their stepmom, just their dad's wife. I didn't play a part in raising them, so I'm okay with that. It's always been tense between us. But I've tried my best to be kind to them and have been generous when I can be. But they are very cold with me. Being a child of divorce, I can partially relate to a parent moving on, so I try not to force anything. Madison recently got engaged, and we are excited about it. Everyone was over recently, and she asked about a wedding budget from us, and Rob told her he was able to contribute $10,000. She has bigger hopes for her wedding than this, so she was upset and kept asking for more. Rob, however, is still working hard on building his savings back up. Before his late wife died, he basically wiped out his cash savings, had to cash out his 401k, and even took a small mortgage on his house to cover medical costs as well as life expenses since he had to cut back on working. Eventually, he had to drop that job for a more flexible but lower paying one. So this $10,000 is actually really generous from him. Rob went to run an errand and it was just me and his kids. Madison then asked me if I'm going to give any in addition to what her dad is giving. I told her we're a marital unit and that's what we discussed together as a reasonable amount to contribute. She then said, "I should have known, obviously you married an older man for what he had, not for what you could give." I knew she didn't like me, but this is the most flat-out rude thing she ever said. I kind of lost it and said, "Excuse me, who do you think has been paying the second mortgage your dad took out to pay his debts?" Truth of the matter is, I make more than her father by a large margin. I have no debt and have been paying 70% of the household bills the whole time we've been married. The $10,000 we're giving her is available because I've been able to subsidize her father's living expenses the last few years. I made it clear that not only am I not a gold digger, I am literally wealthier than my older husband. She called me stuck up after this and stormed out. Then she called her dad later and said that I told her that I blamed her mother for being sick for her not having a better wedding budget. I told him what happened, and he was mad at her, but also said I shouldn't have shared his financial details with his kids. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the jerk. He should have shared his financial situation himself. She is an adult and is old enough to understand that medical expenses are the reason there is not a larger savings. This should not feel like blaming the sick person. This is a sad reality of for-profit healthcare. Comment 2, Not the jerk, but your husband needs to have stern words with his kids. If he doesn't have a word about calling you a gold digger and then spouting lies, you may need to consider whether he does actually love and respect you. Perhaps he's the gold digger. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all the support. It's been a busy few days since then, and I've got some updates to share with you all. So after the whole blow up with Madison, things were pretty tense around the house. Rob was upset with both of us, and I could tell he was struggling to figure out how to handle the situation. He ended up having a long talk with Madison, trying to smooth things over and explain our financial situation a bit more. I don't know all the details of what was said, but I do know that he emphasized how much he loves and supports her, and how he wishes he could give her more for the wedding. Meanwhile, I was doing some soul-searching of my own. I realized that even though I was hurt by what Madison said, I could have handled the situation better. I shouldn't have thrown Rob's financial struggles in her face like that, no matter how angry I was. I decided to apologize to her and see if we could start fresh. The next day, I asked Madison if we could talk privately. At first, she was reluctant, but eventually she agreed. I told her how sorry I was for what I said and that I never meant to hurt her or make her feel like I was trying to replace her mom. I explained that I love her dad and that I'm not with him for his money. I also said that I understand how hard it must be for her to see her dad with someone new, and that I want to have a better relationship with her, if she's open to it. To my surprise, Madison actually listened and seemed to appreciate my apology. She admitted that she had been holding on to a lot of anger and resentment towards me, and that she knew it wasn't entirely fair. She said she misses her mom a lot, and sometimes takes it out on me. We had a really honest and emotional conversation, and I think it was a turning point for us. Later that day, I talked to Rob about what happened. He was grateful that I had reached out to Madison and said he was proud of me for being the bigger person. He also apologized for not standing up for me more and said he would work on being a better mediator between me and the kids. The next day, something unexpected happened. Brett, who had been pretty quiet through all of this, came to me and asked if we could talk. He said he had overheard some of my conversation with Madison and that he wanted to apologize for not making more of an effort to get to know me. He admitted that he had been following Madison's lead and keeping me at a distance, but that he realized it wasn't right. We ended up having a really nice talk, and he shared some stories about his mom and what it was like for him when she passed away. I could tell it was still really painful for him, and I felt a new level of empathy for what he and Madison had been through. I told him that I'm here for him if he ever wants to talk, and that I hope we can have a better relationship moving forward. The last few days have been, well, interesting of emotions, but I feel like we've made some real progress as a family. Madison and I are on better terms. Brett and I are starting to build a relationship, and Rob is being more supportive and understanding. It's not perfect, but it's a start. I know there will be more challenges ahead, but I feel more hopeful than ever that we can face them together. I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned and for the opportunity to grow closer to my stepchildren. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. Thanks again for all your support and advice. It means a lot to have a community to turn to during tough times like these. Am I the idiot for walking home from my graduation because my parents chose my sister's labor over my big day? I, 16-year-old male, graduated last Friday. After the ceremony ended, I couldn't find my parents anywhere. I was looking around for them, and then I decided to check my phone. My mom sent me a text a while ago letting me know that my sister went into labor, and her and my dad were at the hospital. This upset me because I thought my parents were there, but realizing that they weren't just made me sad. I saw everyone else with their family taking pictures and stuff, and I was just standing there awkwardly not knowing what to do. My mom told me that they would be back as soon as possible to come and get me. They did not. I waited for a good 20 minutes watching everyone else leave. I decided to just walk home because I got tired of waiting. I walked 3 miles before my parents drove by and made a U-turn to come and pick me up. They were mad when they saw me walking. They told me that it was disrespectful of me to leave without telling them and accused me of putting myself in danger. I told them that there weren't a lot of people left at the ceremony and I didn't want to wait anymore. I also told them that they knew it was important for them to be there, and they completely bailed on me. They told me that they were sorry and kept trying to justify why they left. I told them that it doesn't make sense for them to leave when my sister's husband was there with her. And if they really wanted to abandon me, they could have at least had one of them stay with me. But they left me with no one to watch me and ruined what was supposed to be a good day for me. My sister didn't even give birth that day. She gave birth like 18 hours later, which pissed me off more. The problem is, my parents are upset with me because they wanted to take another picture of me with my cap and gown on, but I refused. The one they took of me in the car, I wasn't smiling, and my parents wanted a redo because of it. I told them no. I said that if they already had a picture of me, that's all they are going to get. I told them that there are pictures of me on my school's Facebook page and they can screenshot it from there or leave it alone. If they choose to attend my college graduation, they can maybe see me in another cap and gown. But until then, I don't see why I have to put it on just for them when they chose to miss it. They feel as if I'm punishing them by not allowing them to take a picture of me. I just feel like if they wanted a picture, they should have been there. Other than that, they can use the ones on Facebook, the one in the car, or none at all. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. To be honest, I think not the idiot. It would be different if your sister was alone or in distress, but she wasn't. It also sounds like it was her first labor, which notoriously takes hours and hours. If she was safe and had her husband with her, they could have waited a couple of hours with you and then all gone together. Or like you said, one of them stayed. Is she the golden child? Edit. I am aware that not everyone's first labor takes a long time. It's just a longer average than subsequent. Obviously, that includes many shorter labors too. Edit 2. Wow, I can't believe over 8,000 people liked my little comment. Thanks, guys. Comment 2. I sense this might be unpopular, but not the idiot. There was no reason that either of them had to leave, much less both of them. As the parents of 2 children, they surely know labor isn't that fast. At a minimum, one of them should have stayed. That said, I think you should do it. One day when you're a lot older, you might regret not having that picture. Don't steal your own joy just to spite your parents. I promise that you're much more likely to look back and regret being petty than to regret not having been petty enough. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all the support. It's been a wild few days since graduation, and I've got some updates for you. So after the whole graduation fiasco with my parents missing the ceremony, things were pretty tense at home. I was still upset about them leaving me there alone, and they kept trying to make it up to me by offering to take more pictures. But I stood my ground and refused, telling them that if they wanted those special moments, they should have been there when it mattered. The next day, my dad came into my room and asked if we could talk. He apologized again for missing my graduation and explained that he and Mom were just so worried about my sister that they didn't think things through. He admitted that they should have had one of them stay with me, or at least communicated better about what was going on. It was a pretty emotional conversation, and I could tell he felt really guilty about the whole thing. Later that day, my mom came home from the hospital with some news. Turns out, my sister had some complications during labor, and the baby was in distress. They had to do an emergency C-section, and both mom and baby were in the ICU. My heart dropped when I heard that, and suddenly all the anger I felt towards my parents just melted away. I couldn't imagine how scared they must have been, and I felt awful for giving them such a hard time about missing my graduation. The next few days were a blur of hospital visits and waiting for updates. My parents were there around the clock, and I could see the toll it was taking on them. I tried to be as supportive as I could, bringing them food and coffee and just being there to listen when they needed to talk. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we got some good news. My sister and the baby were both stable and doing well. They'd need to stay in the hospital for a bit longer, but the doctors were optimistic about their recovery. I couldn't help but cry tears of relief when I heard that, and I hugged my parents tightly, feeling grateful that we were all together and safe. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized that my parents weren't perfect, but they were doing the best they could in a really tough situation. They made a mistake by leaving me at graduation, but they owned up to it and apologized. And when push came to shove, they were there for my sister and the baby, no matter what. I also realized that I had some growing up to do myself. I was so focused on my own feelings of abandonment and anger that I didn't stop to consider what my parents were going through. I learned that sometimes you have to put your own needs aside and be there for the people you love, even when it's hard. In the end, we all came out of this experience a little bit stronger and a little bit wiser. My sister and the baby are home now, and we've all been spending a lot of time together as a family. I even let my parents take a few more graduation pictures of me just to show them that I forgive them and that I'm grateful for everything they've done for me. So that's where things are at now. It's been a crazy few days, but I'm feeling hopeful about the future. I know that my family will always have my back, no matter what life throws our way. Thanks for reading, everyone. Until next time. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.